Today, we are going to tackle the dreaded coat zipper. I say dreaded coat zipper because I know many seamstresses, sewers who don't do zippers of any kind. They find them too challenging, too difficult. They feel it takes too long. I was reading a post once in a Facebook group, and they were talking about a pants zipper, and the person who did the post was inquiring how much should they charge for this pants zipper because it took them 2 hours from taking it out to replacing a new zipper. And I recall another person mentioning coat zippers, and they had mentioned that they had done a coat zipper replacement and they took 6 hours. So how do they charge for something like that? And I'm baffled because as someone who does sewing, I'm very systematic. When I was trained to do sewing, the tailor who taught me, his theory was we do the same steps all the time, repeat them. Yes, there are some variances in how a garment may be constructed, but other than that, I don't know what somebody would be doing for 6 hours to do a coat. That is another one of the reasons why I find creating content on Jackson's Sewing Academy is so important and needed, because the individuals who are following whichever steps they feel are getting the job done and taking 6 hours, I want to equip them with the skills they need so that they can get that task down to anywhere from 45 minutes to 1 hour maximum, depending on the coat, how it's constructed. Yeah, I was able to put in some coats without any complications, remove and replace a zipper in half an hour. It doesn't happen all the time, but yes, it can happen. But yeah, definitely it should not be taking you 6 hours. If a task is taking you that long, what it boils down to is you can't charge a client for those 6 hours. You're just taking yourself out of the game at that point. You have to have a fee that is relevant and will be worthwhile to the client, as well as that you're making your money out of it, paying for the skill that you have. So you have to find that balance. Like any trade, the sewing trades, where they don't have set standards, set times, that's something that I feel needs to be done. If you were to hire a plumber and they were going to do a routine task for you, already within the plumbing trade, they already know how much time that task will take, and they've already figured out the cost. And that is just it. If for some reason, say the plumber's new, just learning, and they take longer, that does not mean that they will be able to charge anymore. They are going to be charging the same fee and building their skill up to the level where they're getting it done in that time frame. The same needs to be done with sewing. Back to the Facebook group that I frequent often, I recall somebody answering a question that I had, and it had referred to how long something takes and they're charging and how they figure that out. And somebody had replied back to that as to it shouldn't matter how long. They implied that the longer they take to do something, they're doing a better job, and that really just is not always the case. Yes, there are things we want to make sure we're not skimping on, but in the end, there should be a set time, a set standard, and as somebody in that field, you really need to know what that is and to work to where you're getting to that point. So let's get started. One of the reasons I wanted to showcase another coat zipper, and I'm sure in the future I will be doing another coat zipper, the construction of coats varies from maker to maker, depending on the style, and the steps and the format that is demonstrated within the original video varies a little bit depending on that, in order to get the best look and the best finish when everything's said and done. So I wanted us to do this coat here, and I'm going to explain to you what is different on this coat and how we are going to address that to get the good finished look in the end. So let's just get started. One of the elements I want you to notice first is you notice that this zipper is really wavy in this coat. And I think that is the reason why the zipper broke in the first place. From the manufacturer, I think that the zipper is not set in properly, and it may have caused stress that it has caused it to break. So the client has brought it in for us to replace, and we are going to make sure that we get an appropriate size for this. yes, we are going to measure using the original zipper, but as opposed to using the zipper itself, which this waviness is due to the zipper being too long and squeezed in at the factory, we are going to make sure that our zipper fits from the top to the very bottom without having to have this waviness within there. That is just something that will come with time, and you will recognize things like that. Because if I was to cut my new zipper to this length, I'm going to be fighting in order to get it in, and I'm going to be stretching my coat, and then when all is said and done, we will get this waviness once again. And then the new zipper could break as well. And it's just going to be a lot harder for us to put the zipper in, and any task we do not want to add any difficulty to. This particular coat is one way in that the zipper does at the bottom. It doesn't undo at the bottom, it just has the box stopper. Always take note of which side your stopper is on and your zipper pull. Occasionally you may come across a replacement zipper that the pulls will be on the opposite side, and there is a very easy way to make sure that you've got that reversed. You always want to put your zipper back in with the box stopper. The client is doing the zipper up in the same fashion with the replacement, because it's just common courtesy. Yes, they'll figure it out in time, but it's just common courtesy to make sure that you're replacing it on the same side that they are used to using. This particular coat, you have the zipper with the pull is on the right side of the client's coat, and on the left side we have this flap with the Velcro, which once the zipper is closed, the Velcros line up to give a little extra wind protection. And this particular flap is sewn right in with the zipper. Occasionally you will see this top stitch roll over to the side of the zipper, sewn just on the outside of the coat, and it does not affect anything when you're taking out the zipper. But with this coat, when we remove this zipper, this piece will come off as well. So that's another reason why I wanted us to address this coat, because this adds a different step compared to the video in the actual coat video that's in the content of the course. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to remove our zipper. Before we remove the zipper, this is where I do like to measure the new zipper. Now, the reason we do this, the reasoning behind it, is when we're pulling out the old zipper, the zipper may stretch, the material may stretch. Yes, that is true, and that's why I will do my measurements prior. But there are many a times when I've taken up the zipper and I totally forgot to do that measurement ahead of time, so I will just measure using the zipper I took out. It's like, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It doesn't make that much of a difference in the long run. So first, what we're going to do is lay out our coat. And like I said, because this zipper is longer, I'm actually going to measure my new zipper from where the old zipper stops on the coat itself, here. And I'm going to smooth out the fabric and up to the top where the zipper stop will, and using the fabric as a guide, not the zipper. My replacement zipper, I'm going to lay the bottom of the tape, and we're just going to smooth that out. Smooth out the fabric, and here. And my new stopper will go right there. That's where my new stopper will go. Now, generally, I purchase all my replacement coat zippers anywhere from 30 to sometimes 34 inches, sometimes even a little longer, but I average 36 for some for the longer coats and 30 inches for the shorter coats. At one time, I was doing quite a few of the children's coats, so I did buy some zippers a little shorter. This, I'm not even sure what this is, but that's why we're only shortening this one just a little bit, that it will fit with this coat. All right, going to set that aside for now, and let's do our zipper shortening first. I have everything I need right here. I have my knee. These are pliers. Sometimes nail. You can remove nails with these. My needle nose pliers. I have my stopper box. I have all my little stoppers, and I don't bother buying red stoppers. I either buy black, navy, silver, and gold. So for this, I'll just replace it with a silver stopper. Pick up a couple of stoppers. There we go. First thing I'm going to check, undo my zipper. Okay, and determine which side my pull is on. And my pull is on the right side, the proper side, so I don't have to do anything. Let's say this was on the opposite side. All we need to do is take off that top stopper, pull the pull right up and off, but we don't even have to do that. I'm going to start with this side, and what I need to do is I generally will remove enough zipper teeth approximately 1 inch above where my new stopper is going to be. So I am going to, my glasses so I can see. I'm taking my needle, my pliers, and I'm going to grasp all the teeth that I can on here. A little bit of pressure, and then I'm actually holding this taut with my hand, and then just pull with this one. And it takes out all those teeth in one swipe. Most of it is gone. There is just a little bit of plastic remnant, and then I'll even just take this and lightly just pull this along, and then that is gone. I'm going to remove this big stopper here too at the top. I generally don't have to because I don't usually have zippers this short. But there we go. Now I'm going to take my first side, my first stopper, put that on. I put it on like this so it doesn't keep falling off on me. Like that. I have a rule. If one of my stoppers falls on the floor, I don't even look for it. They're points, you know, it's not even a penny, I think, for one of these. So I'm not going to waste the time looking for it at this time. Give it a little pinch into place, and then make sure you give it a good squeeze. Okay, and the first stopper is in place. We could have simply just marked, which I did mark the other side of the tape, and then just remove teeth. But I like to double check. What I like to do to do the next side is I do it up, and now this is done up as far as it'll go. I am going to pull out that tooth that's right by the pull, just for that pull with my splint, with my needle nose. There. There. Now I will remove the teeth above that I need. And clean that up. And now I'll put my new stopper in on the other side. That easy. When I first started sewing many years ago, I used to keep in stock zipper colors and varying lengths, and then I found at some point I was always going to have inventory that just wasn't being used. And if you're not using it, it's just money sitting there, and if you're not using it, it's money wasted. This is the fun part. This is where we're going to be taking the coat zipper out, and we're going to actually tear this coat zipper out. I have had many people tell me that they don't like ripping out the coat zippers. In the years that I have been sewing, which is like over 30 plus years, I have never had an issue, and nothing has torn. An example would be, I did a coat zipper last week where the outside material was like tissue paper. I did not pull that one out. I made sure I slowly picked it out. The majority of the coats, you're not going to have to do that, and especially if you do it in the correct order. This coat, the outside material is a single layer, and then we have the zipper, and on the inside we have the inner material, and it actually is double layered and it has padding. With that in mind, the inside of the material, the lining, is going to be stronger than the outside. So when I start to do my removal, I'm going to start on the side without the flap. I'm going to release, run my blade underneath here on the inside. 2 reasons. If I happen to cut a hole in something, it's on the inside, it's not on the outside material. Plus, when I do my pulling, I'm going to make sure that the zipper stays with the weaker material. That way, when I do my pulling, the zipper helps reinforce the weaker material. Enough just to get your fingers in. And once you've got that, just start pulling. Well, if it stops like this did, they have a little bit of reinforcing in there, that is why, then don't force it. Probably 80% of the time you're going to be able to just rip this baby right out. I recall when I first started doing this when I was in my 20s, and the tailor who had trained me, I'd be picking, and he goes, you just got to rip it out and just trust the process. And once you do, you feel confident. To make the pulling easier as well, kind of give yourself a room. Don't try and just like pull with your fingers. The process in which this was put together from the factory doesn't happen like this often. The zipper came right out all in one. Occasionally then, once we've separated these two, the front and the lining, this will still be attached to the outer material. Then I would pick a couple stitches to release it and then just pull that out. It only has one row of stitching at that point. But we are lucky that this came out. There's top stitching as well as bar tacking at the very bottom, so we're not going to rip that out. We're going to use our blade. You can only free tear till you get to the bar tacking. At that point, I am going to release some of this top stitching at the very bottom. When we do some of our sewing, we will want to be able to get in to do so. So I've mentioned before, always just release enough that you can get in. If you're fighting to get into a small little area, then it's not worth saving those 2 stitches. At the very top, we also have some top stitching. I'm going to have to release that. One side's up. Not going to clean that up yet, although I'm cleaning it up. I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to start on the inside of the lining. Run my blade underneath between the lining and the zipper and give a pull. Some extra stitching here holding that one section. Oh, good. I always find there's something therapeutic about ripping out the coat zipper. Today I don't have an assistant, so I'm not able to keep up with my comments unless I see them on my screen. I will. If you do have any questions, do put them in. Even if you're watching this in a replay, if you have any questions or anything, suggestions, do put them in comments and we will monitor those. Okay, so we release the lining and our zipper. Okay, let's see how this is done. So our zipper's been sewn these separately to this outer flap, and the outer flap is now free from the front of the coat. So what we're going to do next is just remove any top stitching and any bar tacking to remove the full flap. There we go. And I'm going to remove this side of the zipper from this flap. Okay, and in the garbage. So now what we're going to do is get everything cleaned up, remove all our wool threads. I recall a time when I worked, I can't remember which place it was, but somebody would take the coat zippers out for me, and they did not use this method. They generally would just use a stitch ripper and pick stitches to the point. They were spending like an hour or more just removing a zipper. After they removed the zipper, because it took them so long, they would not clean up the threads. So at that point, I'd be stuck doing my own cleaning, and the cleaning of your threads is what takes a couple of minutes, not removing. As you can see, it should only take you like a minute or two to actually take out the zipper. Now there really is no speedy way to do the cleaning, but I said to the person that just leave the zippers in for me then, because I would take mine own out and have it cleaned in much speedier fashion than what they were doing. So if there is a thread inside, and I don't see it out here, I'm not concerned about replacing, like getting rid of that. One thing you will notice in the video and anytime I do a coat zipper, I don't iron anything. I especially don't iron out any of the original creases. Very rarely will I ever do that. I really don't even know when I would. We are going to use the old lines and the old creases to help guide us when putting the zipper back. So yeah, there's no need to go to the iron and to press anything. It just saves an extra step, and it also saves possibly melting anything. We don't need to have that happening either. All right, got one side cleaned up. And if there's still some remaining, I will probably fix that and pull out any stragglers as I'm putting my zipper in. My new zipper, that side. At that point too, especially if you don't want to forget, when a piece comes out like this flap, it's always a good practice to take and pin it to the appropriate side, especially if you're doing prep work for someone else. When they get this coat, you're going to make sure that they're going to put it back onto the proper side. They could probably figure it out, but why waste time with that? Just make sure you put it to the appropriate side. Even as I'm cleaning up these threads here, in my mind, I'm assessing the order of operation of which we're going to put the zipper, replacement zipper back in. When I get a coat of this with that outer flap that is encased inside the zipper itself, I have a certain way of replacing it, and sometimes I'm not as happy with the finished look. So I think what I'd like to do with this one to get a nice clean finish, and it helps you to see what I'm doing when I'm doing what's called inside work. Within the zipper modules, you will notice there are zipper tutorials. One will say replacing a zipper outside work and replacing a zipper inside work. What that means is the side that we don't have the flap, we are going to do outside work. We are going to baste our zipper to the lining, and then when we put the outside material, we're just going to top stitch it onto that. It's all done on the outside. The side that's going to have the flap, we're actually going to get everything basted and into place. But when we do our closing, because once the zipper and everything is together, I won't be able to see to just top stitch the outside of this in place because of the flap. I'm going to do this with the inside work on this side. And all that means is once we get things basted into place, we are going to pull this side through the opposite side and work from the inside, get that all stitched together, and then do our top stitching. So you will see how that's all going to play out once we get there. We are going to do that side first with all our inside work. I've got those all cleaned up. This particular coat, the pocket, was stitched to the zipper. It was basted to the zipper. And when we did all our releasing, it came apart. We will be needing to make sure we retack that. Otherwise, let's begin the process. Let me think. It's going to go there, that's going to go there. Open out. What I'm doing now is I'm kind of figuring out how the steps that I want to take to get. Okay, so this is the side with the flap, and my goal with this is to make sure that when this is relined back up like this, I want it right on that crease. I want everything to fall back into place, and this is what I'm trying to assess right now, the order of operation to do that. Like that there. Okay, that'll work. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get our front flap rebasted back onto the outside of the coat, and my main concern is the stitching in the fold that's already in place. I want it to fall into the same line from the original, so I'm going to line that up. Give me a second to figure this out. Get that into there, line that up there, and get that lined up there. That's there. What you can do too, like I've done here, is I kind of just folded that in place visually, and then I'm just going to hold it with my hand. Oh, it moved. Okay. In place, and then just open that out and pin it into place where it is. I'm going to skip all the way down to the bottom. I always pin at the very top where the neckline meets, and at the very bottom. I'm going to line my facing all the way down, and we're never going to put it right to that seam where the very bottom, because if you were to put it right to the very bottom of where the outer material is meeting the inner material, it's going to stick out too much. You need to have a little bit of ease, so it's always like about 1/8 of an inch still within the front. Those are little tips that I've learned over time. I've struggled. I put it right near the edge, and then when I go to do the actual sewing, it's sticking out, and it doesn't look good. All right. So here I am. Okay. My main goal now is when I do this replacement, I want to make sure that the original crease is lining up into the original stitching, there. So I'm actually going to sew with the outside of the material facing up so I can see where that is falling. This is just a basting stitch, so I'm going to make it a little bit longer, and I'm just going to run this along. We'll see how this goes. One of the reasons we want to make sure that we are doing everything in the same routine is because sometimes things aren't always cut and dried. You don't always get the same thing falling into the same place. So we want to make it as easy as we can for the times when we don't. Cheers. All right. Right now I'm just basting the collar. I should get my pin out. Okay, that's fine. Do a little bit and then I'll see how this is working. I have my needle in and it's being an anchor. Like I've mentioned when I tried before, just laying everything on top and then just putting this, it just doesn't have that nice clean finish, and that's what we want to get, is that nice clean finish. Next, I am going to baste my zipper on top of this seam now. It's time for the zipper to go onto this seam. This is my left side. I'm going to take that, and then my clothes on the right side, and the zipper originally was about 3/4 of an inch up from the very bottom. And my goal here is to have this particular stitching we just did our basting. We want that to run right in the middle of our zipper tape. I'm going to place this bottom of the zipper, center it onto what I just stitched there. And it's about 1 inch up. Also, I'm going to go to the very top. This is where I want to double check that I've got everything into place from my stopper. The stopper generally should fall anywhere from 1/4 inch to about 1/2 inch below the very top of your coat seam. It's never going to go right to the top. And once again, it's the same reasoning. If it goes right to the top, it's going to be too bulky and it'll look like it's sticking out. So I've got that there. I am also going to lay this right on top of that same seam there. That's where the neck joins. I always just put one there too. And we're going to make sure this is lying nice and smooth. Now you can see when I'm not even really pulling that, it's lying flat. You'll recall that the gray one that was in here was wavy. It's because it was too long and they were trying to squeeze this in. My goal now is when I'm going to lie this down, make sure that's opened out, and that's just going to run right in the center, so that's going to, this row stitching is going to baste our zipper to our outside. Even at this point in my career, I'm always thinking of different ways to put things in and which order makes it the simplest. When we're doing this basting, I'm also having the foot of my presser foot. These are the skinnier ones. They're not overly wide. They're about 1/4 inch. And this is perfect for doing coat zippers. Got my needle in, molding things for me. Make sure the other side is out of the way underneath. Smooth out our panel. Line up our zipper so that it's falling right on the tape in the middle of where our stitching is, our basting stitch. And I'm running the presser foot along the teeth. And this is what our finish look's going to want to be, regardless. When we look at everything, I want everything to be parallel. That is always my ultimate goal. If this row of basting moves let's say 1/8 of an inch into this area, it's not going to make or break. It's going, as long as when this is opened out, it's parallel in the same distance all the way down. This is all parallel. We don't want anything veering and looking like it's crooked. Make sure everything's underneath. Everything's looking nice and straight. And I'm going to nice and parallel. Everything's good. Take out this one now, this pin, and continue to do my basting all the way to the top. This outside material doesn't stretch and it's our stable side, so it's going to be facing up. I'm going to start from the very top, and I can feel where two things. First of all, I can feel my zipper teeth through my outer material. When my presser foot runs along that zipper teeth inside, it's going to still fall into the same place that the basting falls, but I can also see where the basting is from the good side. We're going to start at the very top, And so one row stitching down, and I will show you something. This doesn't come out. Here we go. Let's get to the collar. At this point, I'm going to make sure everything's lying flat. Line up my raw edge of the lining. I can see where that is right here, and I want that to line right up with the outside of my coat. And another thing I am doing is, if there is any fullness, we're kind of easing that in at this point. Because it's a little thicker, as I'm sewing, I'm going to kind of use my fingers to press down and sort of hold things into place. You'll find I don't do a lot of pinning. If I'm going to spend all the time to do the pinning, then it's just wasting time on. This will hold everything, and I'm using my hands just to make sure we're guiding us along. The presser foot is running along the zipper teeth underneath, and it's keeping it in a nice straight line. I should have done this a long time ago with coats like this. Take that out. Let's make sure everything's nice and smooth, flat. Right here where my finger's rubbing, I can feel the zipper teeth running right along my presser foot. Oh, yeah. Okay, there. Take out pins, especially whenever we're doing any kind of inside work. You always want to make sure all the pins are being removed. Do not want to leave a pin in. Not good for business. At this point, we are going to take the pocket, which was basted to this seam, and just re-tack that into place as well. This is our basting. One row. Don't have to do any front and back or anything fancy, just basting it to the seam allowance. And now what we're going to do, we're going to reconvert this to the right side, and we're going to see how this is looking before we do any other top stitching and closing up. We're fluffing around. Let's pull out, clean up our threads here, and looking good. This is our top flap. It's nice and opened up at the bottom, and it doesn't go all the way to the bottom. That's fine. As long as it lines up with the Velcros, that is what we need. Look all the way to the top here. Nice. Got a nice finish. It's not sticking out, or like I said, there's not that bump or anything. That's lined perfectly. On the inside, what I like then with this method is this seam, which is this seam. This is the lining, and it's imperative now because when we do our top stitching, we're going to make sure the lining's flat. And when we do our top stitching 1/8 of an inch from here, we're going, oh my God. So at this point, I will put my top stitching in this area. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to do our 1/8 top stitching from the very bottom to the top. And when we do that, we're going to want to make sure that the lining is smooth, nice and flat. One thing you'll notice here too is my stitching did not fall into all the original lining pieces, and that's fine because when all is said and done on the lining, I could give that a steam afterwards, and then that's going to still have a nice clean finish. The fact it's not in all the same lines here is not as imperative. When we steam that, all the old lines will disappear, but it's most important that we have the parallel, this lining up, everything perfect on the outside. Set to our top stitch length, start at the bottom, and going to run this the 1/8 of an inch from the seam. I'm going to use my hand, push all this under, nice and smooth. And I'm only doing from the needle to where my table ends. I don't care what's happening here yet because I'm not there yet. All we need to worry about is what's happening, which is probably 6 to 8 inches from the needle to the table here. Smooth that out. There was some leftover strings from when I did the clean or failed to clean. Smooth that out. And the rest to our top stitching. Whenever we're doing top stitching, find a safe place on your presser foot or somewhere just to kind of eye up that you're getting that nice parallel appearance. The next section, smooth that out. Open this out and do the next. Get this thing hanging out. Smooth the lining down. Open that out and continue. Oops, I can hear it skipping, and that has to do with, I think it's really thick in this area. And my machine, I think my machine needs to have the timing done. And because I'm the machine technician, I will be doing that shortly. If that is something you would like to see, I'd love to show you how I do reset my timing on an industrial machine. I do leave information on that in the comment. I do pretty much all my machine maintenance. When I get to the top, a little bit of a front and a back to secure, and there's like two eighths of an inch or something, maybe not even quite quarter of an inch, top stitching, the top pivot, and I'm going to be joining up with that. Overlap slightly, front and back to secure. While I'm here, I'm going to replace the top stitching at the very top. A little front and back to stop, and then blend in the original stitching, join it up. A little front and back to that, clip any threads. But yes, I'd like to share how I do the timing. Okay. My machine, like I said, was skipping a little bit here. I'm going to see if I can go over that once again. I also want to kind of give you a view as to what this is looking like on this side. Whenever I do that top stitching, I will do my row, then I will kind of go back and check it. Occasionally, if this happened to have gotten too puckered or too much old, we want to make sure the bottom at the inside is lying nice and flat and smooth, especially the lining area. You see how it's kind of rolling over top of the spacing? We want to make sure that's smooth and flat. Smooth up your hand, get that laid down, and my hand's holding this in place. Join up with the original stitching, a little bit of a front and back and overlap. Once again, I'm going to be smoothing this out. It's a good habit when you're doing this smoothing. Pull your leg back off the machine pedal. And now, you could probably hear the little pick, pick, pick. My needle is dull as well. A little loud. If my needle is a little dull, I will be changing that out as well. But, okay, so we've got that top stitching. Now along the bottom. The left side of this coat is done, and the zipper is in, and that turned out really nice. We've got perfectly parallel flap. Open this out, let's get rid of any strings, and on the inside, nice, clean, and straight as well. But prepare to do the last side, and before we put that in, we take our zipper, we're going to rejoin it up. The reason for this is, should there be any detailing on the coat that needs to be lined up, we need to have our zipper done up. Once the first side is in, this is where we're going to transfer all those marks to the second side. For this coat, the only area that needs to be, oh, I hate Velcro, oh, it's getting off. The only area that needs to be lined up is our collar. We can line up the these top stitching at the bottom, top and bottom as well. But I don't usually mark that because I figure if I've got it lined up properly here and lined up here, it's going to fall into place at this point. So first thing we're going to do is also take note of our zipper. There's the zipper pull. How far from the very top of the coat does that fall? I don't normally measure that. I can tell that, I just know from experience that that's here. It's 3/8 of an inch below the very top. You can put a chalk mark on the other side. That is totally acceptable. You can line up your coat, top and bottom, and put a piece of chalk mark here, denoting where that's at. I don't normally even do that. I just visually know where it falls, but do what works for you. The collar here, I have to determine on, it's because I can't actually see. I'm going to take a pin and stick it through so I can see where that's falling on my zipper. There we go. And we do want to determine where the bottom of the zipper, how far up it is from the bottom of the coat. Line that up, the left and the right side. And I'm going to put a chalk mark where the bottom of the zipper tape falls. Right there. All right. Now some thread. All right. And I'm going to transfer that chalk mark I just made to my lining as well, because I'm going to baste my zipper to the lining side first on this step. The procedure that this is considered outside work. We are going to baste the zipper to the lining first, then just top stitch the front in place. Now, remove your zipper, step inside. We want to turn our coat around and pin our zipper to the lining side. Let's get all our flaps opened out. See how that's all opened out there, and that's our little chalk mark. The bottom of the zipper tape goes right there. And one of the things we want to make sure too is that, once again, that fold, the original fold, is kind of in the middle of the zipper tape. But our main concern when we do this basting will be flattening out any of this, lining this up, but also I'm going to make sure that the edge of my presser foot is still running along the teeth of the zipper. That's how we always get that nice parallel line. It's always going to be the width of my presser foot toe. Pin at the bottom. Going to line my stopper up at the very top. Okay, get that there. Put a pin at the very top where the stopper goes. And then where my neck seam lines up. And I always do just a check. Make sure that it's not too long. And once again, the zipper is stable. This area is less stable. So that's why I'm going to sew with the zipper side up. Open this out. We're going to do one row of basting. I'm opening out all the material here. Yes, I see. There's my pocket. That pocket that was basted to the other side. This one didn't come all apart. Normally that does come out. Okay, let's release that so we can put that back in properly afterwards. Okay. So what I'm going to do, start at the very bottom. My presser foot running along my zipper teeth. Start it, leave the needle in. If your machine has a setting that allows you to stop, and when you stop that your foot can be left down in, that's always a good thing to do. That way I don't have to keep turning the wheel. This is holding. I'm just going to line up halfway, smooth everything out. I'm looking visually, is this parallel? I like the looks of that. So let's do our row of stitching. Stop, secure, smooth out. Nice and parallel and straight. And baste. Take my pin out. I'm going to pull my slider out of the way, making sure the underside is out of the way, and finish my basting to the top. This is just basting one side of the zipper to the lining. Going to flip the excess of the zipper down so it's out of the way. All right. Take a quick look. And we have that zipper basted into place. I'm going to now at this point take the pocket and then baste it to that. And the reason I do that is that's the way it was in the manufacturer, but also when I run my presser foot along the zipper teeth, my stitching will fall right there on the 1/8 from this folded edge, right there. As always, what's most important is we just need parallel stitching. So if at some point the presser foot comes away from the teeth, I'm not going to worry about it. I need to make sure this is caught, but I also need to make sure it's all parallel. I have the neck, the very top pinned. I'm going to jump down to the bottom, tuck in the lining, let strings that are yucky. I am lining up my chalk mark with the bottom of the zipper teeth. Get a pin in there. Of course, I can't pin the plastic, so it's just going to be right there. Make sure the lining is smoothed back. And Velcro, Velcro. Sticking everywhere. Hold this in. And I will actually pin midway for this. Just because the Velcro is being obstinate and getting in my way. And it's catching on everything. Pin that will help to hold that out of my way. All right. To replace our top stitching, I'm going to start at the very top, join their top stitching here, pivot, continue all the way down, reinforce. So let's do that first. Now, make sure everything's looking good at the top. There's still some strings in my way. I don't like it. Taylor, who taught me, always say, clean out any loose threads, because if your client sees loose threads, if they're not even from you, they're going to think the work's falling apart. So always good to clean loose threads. Right now, this is tucked in proper. It's nice and square. Let's continue. Stop. I'm going to do a pivot. Smooth the lining underneath. I'm going to ensure at this point that the presser foot's running along the zipper teeth. Do a couple stitches, and because this is at the very top and it's going to take a little bit more wear, a little front and back. Typically on coats they will have bar tacking there. We just do a little reinforcement stitch, flatten out the very bottom, and I have perfectly parallel here. By running my presser foot along the teeth, it's falling perfectly in place with my top stitching. So just to get to this point, and that's looking beautiful. One thing you'll notice I will be doing with my hands as well. This area, the needle is anchoring. This allows me to do some pulling. That's another reason why I love an industrial machine. It has that stability where if we're using this domestic, you don't have that, the weight of this that I can pull as well. But also, my hand now is acting as my pins. I can hold this right like this without necessarily pinning, and I'm helping to hold this other material into place. It's running just along the side of the presser foot to pin, leave out the slider, pull it down under, get this into place. Whenever you can put a coat zipper in and you just do this outside sewing, it's always a lot quicker. If you're ever going to put a coat zipper in under half an hour, both sides are going to be outside work. But because we don't have the luxury of having guaranteed that every coat is going to be like that, then we just go with the flow. I'm at the very bottom of the zipper. Want to do front and back tacking so that it replaces the original tacking, because again, that area is going to be taking some wear. We clipped our threads, and that turned out beautifully. Exactly the 1/4 inch from the edge. Top stitching is 1/8 of an inch from the folded area. That turned out beautifully. Let's replace the rest of our decorative stitching at the top. Smooth this out. Make sure it's smooth on the bottom side. It's underneath, overlap just enough so that it blends. You don't want to overlap like just 1 or 2 stitches, because one of them are going to start lifting up. You want to make sure you don't have any stitches lifting up in the future. I'm just stitching in their original spots. And then we have a collar curve there. Replace the bottom top stitching, make sure it's nice and smooth here. Flatten that out. That in. Clean up any threads, and we are done. Second side. Check on the inside. Before we are officially done, we always want to check, make sure that this is nice and flat, that a whole bunch didn't kind of slip in one. And if it did, we're just going to replace that area, smooth it out. But that turned out beautifully. Let's do up our coat. We want to make sure the areas that we want lined up are lined up. There we go. The bottom, perfect. You can see the bottom here. Velcros are all lining up nicely. So there, the top. Even from the inside, you can see how that lined up nicely there. And we would go and replace the snap. I'm not going to include that in today's lesson, but yeah, I normally would go, and I did have a snap that was removed. I don't know why I would have taken that out, actually. Yes, because with the snap, to replace this nicely, it would have interfered with my stitching, and it's not worth trying to fight around that snap. Just remove that section, and then you can always just replace that half after. But other than that, this is complete. See how nice we've got? Beautiful here, perfectly parallel. Our goal with any type of zipper replacement is you want the client to say it looks like nothing's been done, and that's what our goal will be. So, other than that, that's all we have. Let me see if I have any questions here. I don't see anything. Sheila, been loving your tutorials. Thank you, Sheila. I appreciate that. So, at that point, I'd just like to say thank you for those who were able to join me. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the replay. If you have any questions or any suggestions, do leave them in the comments, even once we're into YouTube. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it helps simplify this task for you. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again.